Hey, Clemson family, Garrett Riley isn't the only help on the way to the Reeves Center. We'll dive into the freshman early enrollees who are getting started with the Tigers this football offseason. There's more than a dozen of them.
I'm Daniel Shirley. We'll also continue to talk about the first place Clemson basketball team as they get ready for 2 more ACC games this week.
I'm Bill Zimmerman. Welcome to episode 58 of the Reign Supreme Alway podcast. Smash that subscribe button at youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff, just like so many others have, or follow us on your favorite podcast app, or do both. Well, let's get into football. We had a little fun, I think, as a bunch of Clemson followers with a Cade Klubnik tweet Monday morning, raised a few eyebrows, but it seems it was to signal the start of winter workouts. But Daniel, that got us thinking about the freshmen who are already on campus.
It did. There was a little bit of excitement early in the morning, and but then you saw the time on the tweet at 5:38, I believe was the time. So there's probably some excitement for him just getting in the weight room. So that's exciting too. I mean, to see him showing that kind of leadership, that kind of anticipation for getting to work. So, but he was an early enrollee last year. Now there's a strong group coming in. Can't wait to see what this group brings to this team, Bill. And like I told you before we started recording, all 3 of the offensive line signees are in the early enrollee group. That is really interesting to me, and I think that could be an important piece to the puzzle for this group.
Yeah, I can see several of these guys possibly making an impact this coming season. It's hard to predict exactly which ones, but really out of the 14, I look up and down that list, and just about everybody is going to have a shot, whether it's because they are super talented like Peter Woods along the defensive line is, or whether it's just a position that's a little thin and an early enrollee freshman has a leg up. They'll get in, they'll get conditioned, but they'll also be able to start learning the systems, whichever side of the ball they're on. There are 14 of December's freshman signees who are in the Reeves complex, and they're getting to work. 4 of them on the defensive line, 3 of them on the offensive line. I'm a believer in building a team from the trenches out. And even if these guys don't end up with starting jobs this year, I think it's important for them to realize the shape they have to be in, how their technique has to change, and then where they have to be as far as what the coordinators are asking of them.
No doubt. Look, I think it's almost impossible to have a huge impact as a lineman if you don't enroll early. Not that it doesn't happen, but how hard would that be to get there in the summer as a lineman and say, okay, I'm going to make an immediate impact? That's just really, really hard. So yeah, I really believe that's a big plus, especially for those 7 guys, like you mentioned, on the line. So can't wait to see what they bring. Obviously, Peter Woods is the star of this group. I think he could start right away. We've had Jeremy Johnson on before. He said he thinks he can start right away. I don't have any doubt about that. But these other guys too, Vic Burley, again, I've seen Vic Burley play since he was a freshman in high school here in Middle Georgia. Really think he could have a big impact on this team. We've talked about how defensive line is a position of need in this group. And look, there's several of those guys already on campus working and can have an immediate impact for the 2023 Tigers.
Woods or even Staffield and Green, you could see them maybe getting a few reps at defensive end. There may be a little experimentation with what they could do on the outside. Tigers are going to be thin there next year. And then, of course, you have natural defensive end to Marion Parker. So any of those guys who might be able to contribute there should be able to help. And then I think looking at the linebackers, you think very highly of D. Creighton, Jamal Anderson, a lot of big reviews on him as well. And with the thin spots at linebacker, either of those guys can end up getting a lot of reps, again, with the benefit of being in the system. We heard last year that new defensive co-coordinator Wes Goodwin wanted to simplify things for the linebackers. Linebackers played pretty well last year overall. I would say that Barrett Carter shined no matter where he lined up. Jeremiah Trotter took huge steps forward and earned a lot of accolades and deserved them. Trenton Simpson, of course, obviously a ton of talent, really seemed to do better once he moved back over to his original position from his freshman and sophomore years. So let's see where Anderson and Creighton might be able to contribute, filling in behind Carter, behind Trotter, or behind Wade Woodaz if he moves over to that Sam position as well. And then you got a couple of safeties coming in, Khalil Barnes and Kylan Webb. Either one of them could end up helping out because of the attrition that you have at safety. And then the final defensive player coming in early, cornerback Shelton Lewis. I think it's tough for a freshman to come in and start at corner. But if the talent is there and if they're going to use enough man schemes and if you can pick things up quickly, then absolutely there is going to be an opportunity for someone who can pick up the pieces right away and get out there and contribute.
From all indication, he was strong in the bowl practices as he got to take part in the practices. There were 5 of those early enrollees who did go down to Florida. They practiced with the team first before they went to Florida and then down in Florida as well, and heard good things about him. So we'll see. Bill, also, how important is it for these early enrollees on offense to get in? And there's a new scheme now with Garrett Riley, like we've talked about the last couple of episodes. So they're going to be learning an entirely new scheme. So that has to be huge as well for Christopher Vizina, the offensive lineman. Noble Johnson, I think, obviously could be another one that could really step in and get some playing time, because we know that receiver has been kind of a sore spot the last couple of years. So there's a lot of these players in this group, in this class, who I think could have a big impact on this team this year.
Yeah, Johnson already measuring 6'2", 205. He should get a pretty good look in the room, and especially if he's able to pick up some of the new routes that Riley will be installing, work with Grisham and see how things take shape for him early out of the gate. Measuring 6'2", 205, we look at the heights and weights then average across the 4 major recruiting services because they can vary pretty widely. I'll be really interested to see Clemson release the first set of official heights and weights when guys start getting on campus. Hopefully you don't have to press Vizina into service. 6'4", 205. He probably has a frame for it. You'd always like to see a quarterback add a little bit of muscle to be able to take the beating that a running quarterback at Clemson has. We certainly saw Max Dugan running physically for Riley at TCU last season. And then they may need to run physically because that offensive line still has some work to be done to get back to, playoff caliber, national championship caliber, like it had been 2019 and before. Harris Sewell, Ian Reed, Zechariah Owens all have the size to be able to step in there. Sewell at 6'4", 300, Reed at 6'6", 300. Owens a whopping 6'7", 360, but several reports that he was injured a lot last season, so he may be a little bit more of a conditioning project. You remember Peyton Page, when he got to campus, needed to shake off some weight concerns. I believe that was after there was no season his senior year, if I remember correctly. So we'll see how Owens is physically, not just the injury, but also does the injury sometimes hamper your conditioning. A lot of possibility, though, there to add some depth around the offense. And I would think in Noble Johnson's case, if he really shines, like he could be starting at some point in the year, much like Antonio Williams last year.
I don't have any doubt about that, Bill. I mean, look, you see the 3 freshmen, Antonio Williams, Adam Randall, and Cole Turner. At some point, they all kind of showed, okay, they should be in the lineup. I know Randall didn't get nearly as many chances as those other 2, but he looks like once he's healthy, he's going to be a really good player for that offense. But you need more wide receivers than that. And, we know Bo Collins is going to be back. Hopefully he'll be healthy and ready to go for the whole season. But there's chances there for Noble Johnson, especially in a new offense with a new offensive coordinator. If he can show his stuff this spring, I think there will be a lot of chances for him to get on the field.
We might only be a couple months or a little more away from that spring game. We're waiting on a date to be released for that. But when I see them play in the spring game, it's not so much that I'm looking for exact results or, stats or what play did they run or that kind of thing. But I just kind of watch for certain traits. A few guys I remember in recent years, Artavis Scott, when he was a freshman, his footwork, his lower body balance was just jumping off the screen to me watching that. You couldn't miss Christian Wilkins' general athleticism. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. It's just one game. Few of the guys are in there all day long and getting consistent reps over and over. But you just sort of look for some trait and some early things that can help a guy have a foundation really to build on.
And these guys will progress at different rates. Dabo Swinney talks about that all the time. Not everybody's going to come in ready to go from the jump. Some will contribute this year. Some will take a year or 2. hopefully this group is able to contribute a lot throughout its 4 years. But I really like this class. I do. And we haven't even talked about a guy like Avion Terrell, who's not enrolling early. I mean, he's as polished a high school cornerback as you're ever going to see, and he's not in the group that's enrolling early. But I know we're focusing on these guys. Again, I can't wait to watch these guys on the defensive line, see what they are, the offensive line as well. How do they mold their bodies now that they're working with the strength staff, the conditioning staff, focusing on all those parts of the game as well. They get them in mat drills in a couple of weeks, so that'll be interesting as well. So there's a ton here, but I really, really like this group, especially the ones who are already on campus.
We've also seen some adjustments in the player rankings by some of the major recruiting services of late, kind of getting things wrapped up as February signing day approaches. Peter Woods, by the way, his average measurement 6'3" and 270. He collected his coveted 5th star, both from Rivals and on 3 very recently. And then when you get to that spring game, I'm also going to be really interested to see some of the redshirt freshmen or even some of the sophomores who haven't played a ton. Along the offensive line, guys like Dietrich Pennington, Ryan Linthicum, Tristan Lee, defensive end Zaire Patterson. We haven't seen much of him. We really haven't seen much of Cade Denoff for that matter. Troy Stellato at receiver has been hurt the first couple of years on campus. Hopefully all those guys will be healthy. They've been around the program. They should know the scheme, so maybe somebody makes a splash out of all of that. I don't want to go too far down that road right now. We'll get into a lot of that in a future episode. But a lot of youth really could emerge in that spring game.
Yeah, they could. What about a Jaheim Lawson, right? There's going to be some reps there for him, with some open spot. This is a young team. There's a lot of talented youth in this group, and it's going to be fun to watch. I think that makes the spring game really, really interesting. The new offense coordinator makes the spring game really, really interesting as well. So I really think Clemson is as intriguing a team as there is this offseason. It's going to be fun to keep an eye on all of it.
And as things like that take shape, we can keep you posted on all of it in between episodes on social media at Clemson Kickoff on Twitter and on Instagram. Well, let's get into basketball. The Tigers still in first place in the ACC. The 2 opponents this week for the Tigers, Georgia Tech on Tuesday. That'll be at home. And then Saturday, they will travel to one of my least favorite places, Tallahassee, to play Florida State.
It's a big week, Bill. Maybe a little bit different of a big week just because these are games that there's a really good chance for you to win, especially Tuesday night. Georgia Tech is not very good. They're really, really struggling to score. They haven't played well. Of their 8 conference losses, 7 of them have been by double digits. So they've really struggled. So you can't lose a game like that at home. But what we saw Saturday was Clemson really struggled without Chase Hunter. I really believe that is impacting this team's offense, and you saw it against Virginia Tech. Clemson did get the win, the huge shot by Hunter Tyson, another great game by PJ Hall. PJ is playing really well. He looks like he's getting healthy, but they just really could not get anything going offensively, even though they won the game. So you would hope that maybe Chase is able to play Tuesday. If he can't play Tuesday, at least hopefully he can get back in the lineup on Saturday and get this offense going again. But Tigers are still in first place. They're 8-1 in the conference. Virginia's 7-2. And Clemson's in good shape. They just need to try to get their rhythm back on offense. And hopefully that means Chase Hunter's back in the lineup.
Florida State, in all seriousness, has been doing better of late. They had some early injuries, but they have been gathering a little momentum as guys have been getting healthy and kind of gelling together on the court. So that could be a tough one, especially on the road. And of course, Leonard Hamilton, a very respected coach. So you would think they'll be as ready as they can be, depending on who's available.
Florida State struggled early, and they're playing a lot better. They went on the road this past week and got a big win at Pitt. I think that says a lot about what Florida State is going to do the rest of this year. Leonard Hamilton is a hell of a coach. I don't know any other way to put it. What he has built at Florida State is kind of the model for what you want to see at one of these quote-unquote football schools where people say you can't win there because you're a football school. Well, Leonard Hamilton has proved that to be fool's gold because he's gotten it done at Florida State. So really good coach, really good program. You'd love to see Clemson have that same kind of success with its basketball program. But we're talking about this year. Right now, Clemson is that team. First place, playing well, get a couple more wins this week, and get healthy. Hopefully the Tigers could go on a run here the second half of the season.
We'll see how Brad Brownell can try to solve some of these problems of late and try to keep the Tigers on track as the Tigers get through the heart of their schedule. Be sure to check out our homepage, clemsonkickoff.com. You can check out all our past episodes there, see where we were right, see where we missed the mark a little bit. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, hit the follow button on your favorite podcast app, and we will keep you posted on all the top news around the Clemson Tigers athletic program. We do have some position by position previews in the works, and I hope it pulls together, but we, knock on wood, have a really good guest lined up for our next episode.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Don't want to give away too much. Special guests coming up on our next episode. Hopefully we're able to get that done, but I'm excited about that.
And someone you and I have both worked with and have a lot of respect for. I think it'll be very insightful. So stick with us. Until then, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.